What do you say to the people who say, Sophie Cunningham, she shoots those three-pointers, makes them look like free throws?
I'm like, good. That's what I get paid to do. I should.
You do get paid.
Barely, but we're still surviving.
That voice, that confidence, that unwillingness to deliver the safe, scripted answer. Sophie Cunningham has never been the kind of player to follow the league's PR playbook, and that authenticity is exactly why her latest comments about Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever, and the situation surrounding Caitlin Clark are dominating the sports world right now. Because when someone with nothing to protect decides to speak honestly about what's happening behind the scenes, people pay attention. And now, Cunningham's words, combined with Caitlin Clark's visible frustration, body language, and undeniable performance numbers, are creating a conversation the Indiana Fever organization can no longer ignore. Fans aren't just upset anymore. They feel betrayed. Not disappointed. Not frustrated. Betrayed. The reason? Supporters are watching a pattern unfold in real time. Rotations that disrupt Clark the moment she gains momentum. Post-game reactions that overlook the player who just carried the team through historic moments. And a growing belief that the coaching staff is failing to fully support its biggest superstar. At this point, many fans no longer see it as simple mismanagement. They see something deeper, something intentional. And now, according to growing reports and public reactions, both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham appear finished with staying silent about it. The tension is real. The spotlight is growing. And the Indiana Fever may soon be forced to answer questions they never expected to face this publicly.
Stephanie White defenders are starting to turn on her. Stephanie White's biggest advocates are starting to turn on her.
The growing sentiment of, hey, Stephanie White is not the right coach for this team. It has been there.
Even the defenders are starting to turn. The same people who spent months defending this hire, defending the system, defending the coaching staff, they are beginning to change their stance. And when that shift happens, the entire dynamic inside a sports franchise changes with it. Because once loyal supporters start questioning leadership publicly, the pressure becomes impossible to contain. Now the real question is whether the Indiana Fever front office recognizes that shift in real time, or if they're going to wait until falling support, fan outrage, and boycott-level backlash force them to respond. To understand why the Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Stephanie White situation has reached this level of tension, you have to go back to the game against the Washington Mystics. Because that game, and especially what happened afterward, became the turning point. The moment frustration evolved into what many fans now view as a full organizational crisis. Caitlin Clark delivered one of the most explosive fourth-quarter performances the WNBA has ever seen. 5 deep three-pointers from logo range. 17 points in just 9 minutes. A breathtaking effort that almost single-handedly pulled her team back from a seemingly impossible deficit. The entire arena could feel the momentum shift. The crowd erupted. Washington suddenly looked shaken. Every Fever possession felt dangerous. Every shot from Clark carried the energy of a player taking over the biggest moment on the floor. For a brief stretch, it felt inevitable, like the comeback was not just possible, but destined.
Caitlin Clark just put on one of the greatest fourth-quarter performances in WNBA history to carry her team to overtime. She was 5 of 7 from three-point range for 17 points in 9 minutes.
5 of 7 from beyond the arc, 17 points in just 9 minutes. A fourth-quarter explosion that instantly entered the conversation as one of the greatest clutch performances the WNBA has ever witnessed. Caitlin Clark was unstoppable. Every shot felt bigger than the last. Every possession shifted the energy inside the arena. Fans were on their feet. The momentum had completely changed. For those final minutes, it looked like Clark was about to pull off a comeback that people would be talking about for years. And then the game ended. The cameras immediately turned towards Stephanie White during the post-game press conference, and one reporter asked the question everyone expected. What did she think about Caitlin Clark's unbelievable performance? What happened next is the moment that sent the internet into absolute meltdown, and the controversy has only grown louder ever since.
5 threes in that fourth quarter, more than our first 2 games combined. So just your thoughts on the resilience from her.
I thought our whole group showed resilience.
The whole group showed resilience. That was the response. After a historic individual performance, After 5 three-pointers in 9 minutes. After one player completely transformed the energy of the game and nearly carried her team to an unforgettable comeback. The answer was about the whole group. And that is the moment fans could not ignore anymore. Because to many people watching, it no longer felt accidental. It felt deliberate. The coach would praise the team collectively, but could not bring herself to say Caitlin Clark's name in the moment everyone knew belonged to her. The player responsible for the explosion. The player who turned a lost game into must-watch television. Then, only seconds later, the same reporter asks a nearly identical question, this time about Kelsey Mitchell. And suddenly the response changes completely.
Kelsey Mitchell and what she did with Grammy was something else.
It's speechless, really. She was 0 for 7 in the first half and 4 points and just put us on her back.
Speechless for the player who started the game 0 for 7 in the first half. But somehow not speechless, not even directly complimentary, toward the player who erupted for 5 threes in the fourth quarter of that very same game. Same night, same press conference, same coach. Yet within less than a minute, fans witnessed 2 completely different emotional responses from Stephanie White. And people noticed immediately. Before White had even stepped away from the podium, clips comparing the 2 answers were already spreading across social media. Fans replayed the contrast frame by frame, analyzing the tone, the wording, even the hesitation. Because to many viewers, this was no longer about one awkward answer in a post-game interview. It felt like evidence of something bigger. And that is where the conversation surrounding Stephanie White became far more serious than a single press conference moment. Because the post-game comments are not what truly concerns fans anymore. Those comments are being viewed as a symptom. The real issue, according to critics, is the growing pattern of in-game decisions. Rotations that interrupt momentum. Offensive stretches where Clark disappears from the action after catching fire. Possessions that seem to move away from the hottest player on the floor at the exact moment she takes control of a game. Fans have now watched these moments happen repeatedly across multiple games. And after seeing the same patterns over and over again, frustration has evolved into suspicion. That is why some supporters are no longer using words like mistake or bad coaching. They are using words like deliberate. They are using words like coordinated.
Back-to-back threes. Stephanie White hates seeing that. She sits Caitlin Clark on the...
Clark hits back-to-back threes. The momentum shifts instantly. The crowd erupts. Energy floods the arena. For a moment, it feels like nobody on the floor can stop her. And then it happens. The timeout. The substitution. The rotation change that suddenly takes the ball out of Clark's hands at the exact moment her rhythm reaches its peak. At first, fans tried to explain it away. Maybe it was standard coaching. Maybe it was simple minute management. Maybe Stephanie White was trying to slow the pace down, reset the defense, or preserve Clark's energy for the final stretch. And to be fair, one game alone cannot prove anything. 2 games cannot prove anything either. But when fans begin documenting the same pattern over and over across an entire season, the conversation changes. People started timestamping substitutions, tracking scoring runs, comparing offensive efficiency with Clark on the floor versus off it. And the deeper they looked, the harder it became to ignore the trend. The Fever went 4 straight minutes without a single field goal the moment Clark left the floor. That is not fan fiction. That is not internet exaggeration. That is a measurable performance collapse. And every serious evaluation of this team eventually circles back to the same uncomfortable question. Why does the offense repeatedly lose all momentum the moment its hottest player is removed from control of the game? What intensified the frustration even more was the post-game response that followed. After the Washington game, after the scoring drought, after Clark personally dragged the Fever back into contention with one of the most explosive fourth quarters the league has seen in years, Stephanie White still framed everything around the group. The specific impact of Clark's performance seemed almost deliberately minimized. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell, despite struggling through in 0 for 7 first half, received a noticeably more emotional and direct response from the coach. Fans paying attention saw the disconnect immediately. And according to many of them, this is no longer about isolated moments. It is about a growing pattern that keeps repeating itself publicly and strategically. That is where Sophie Cunningham enters the story, because Cunningham's comments changed the entire tone of this conversation. She is not some random commentator chasing attention. She is a respected veteran, a proven starter, and one of the few active WNBA voices willing to speak openly instead of delivering polished, league-approved answers. And when Cunningham began describing the environment surrounding Caitlin Clark, the resistance, the resentment, the reaction from what she called the old guard, fans immediately connected her words to what they believed they were already witnessing inside the Fever organization. Especially because the coaching philosophy she described seemed to mirror exactly what many people remembered from Stephanie White's Connecticut Sun teams during their playoff battles against Clark. That history matters, because fans have not forgotten the physical defense, the relentless pressure, or the controversy surrounding how Clark was treated during that series. To many viewers, it crossed the line from aggressive basketball into something far more personal and targeted. Now, imagine the optics of that situation today. The same player who once had defensive schemes built entirely around shutting Clark down is now the coach responsible for leading her development, managing her minutes, controlling the offense, and standing at the podium explaining her performances after games. That reality is what has made this situation so explosive online. And according to the reaction building across social media, fans believe Clark is no longer staying silent about the tension surrounding her either. Calls for boycotts are spreading. Some fans are threatening walkouts. Others are openly demanding public accountability from the Fever front office. Normally, online outrage fades quickly. Sports fans threaten to stop watching all the time, and usually they come back because loyalty to the team outweighs frustration. But supporters believe this situation feels different.
There's 1,600 empty seats, frustration with their wallets.
White does not know how to capitalize on a